Yeah, I don't think anyone can keep up effectively. It's an arms race, and everyone's speed is just the speed of AI, and that's not human speed.
Hey, welcome back to our podcast, Future Proof. It's Saturday morning. I'm in Los Angeles, California. Actually, technically, I'm not in Los Angeles. I'm in Pasadena, California. I have to keep reminding myself, Harry, that I moved to Pasadena. Um, and I'm here with my colleague and partner, Harry DeMott. Where do we find you?
New Canaan, Connecticut today, which is where I almost always are nowadays. Um, Little suburb of New York City, commutable. In
Yeah,
for the Ranger game last night, but for the most part, every time I go to New York City, I thank God that I live out here.
yeah, that's right. And you buried the lead. What happened at the hockey game?
Rangers, in a must-lose game, they managed to win 5-1. Very hard to root against your team, but on the other hand, if you're looking to the future, you want a better draft pick. And at this point, they're mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. So, but great energy at the Madison Square Garden last night. Always a pleasure to be there. Great to see the team win. Great to see the youngsters get a chance. It's going to be a new day there in another year, and I think that's kind of what we're dealing with in the AI world, isn't it?
Yep.
It's sort of a new day.
It,
Every day is a new day.
I mean, it's like, I've been saying this for like since, I don't know, 2021, 2022. The stuff that's being dropped by engineers, all over the place, chief among them, let's focus on Claude and Anthropic, what they're doing, because we're really impressed there and have been. But there's development everywhere. And the development of all the technology there's impact everywhere. Um, and some of it hasn't even been discovered. And but it's showing up everywhere. And I think we're in a really profound time, both as a developer, engineer, or an executive, or a writer, a thinker. I think this technology is is beyond measure. Like I think sometimes I could figure it out, or I think like, wow, this is really where this thing's going, and then I'm just dumbfounded at how good this stuff is. And we're always at the worst moment of it because it's getting better so fast. Like if you're whatever you were doing on Monday, by Friday, it's like, dude, that's Monday. You got to do Friday. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
the pace of change is pretty monumental. I sent you a note earlier this week, and I said it's sort of crazy. I literally work in Claude Cowork pretty much all day. We produce our co-AI newsletters, our what we send out on email, what we put on our website, and
and our
most.
code.
And all of it's pretty much done in Claude, I've been on Cowork most of the time, and I had to start Cowork. I would say I had to restart it 3 or 4 times a day for the last 3 days because Anthropic's pushing that many new features into that system. And, every time I looked up, there'd be a little thing on the left that says, version 3.2456789, restart. Okay. You restart it. Hey, what do you know? Projects showed up. Hey, what do you know? And it's almost like they just looked at what OpenClaw was, probably went to the GitHub repo, said, what are the projects that have the most stars on them? Okay, push those, push those, push those. And someone or some team there just pushed them all this week to the point where if, you know, Jensen was speaking last week about what's your claw strategy, by this week, he's going to rewrite that script and say, why not just work in Cowork? Why not just work in Claude?
Yeah. What's interesting, so I did the same thing. And, just to back you up there for one sec, because on how we're making everything. Yes, we both work in Claude Code, Claude Cowork, and I know that you're becoming quite a master, and we should probably talk about that. But we also use Google Gemini in the cloud. We have some really interesting kind of cloud routines that are happening sort of separate and apart from us, right? That's like it's culling the web, it's doing a bunch of work for us. It's cleverly doing work that we kind of shadow. The only time we know it's not doing the work, when it's not doing the work, we're pissed off. But like generally it's like out there just doing what we want. We almost forget about it and we become sort of like, hey man, our product EK is not working, right? And then we're it's not feeding us what we need. And then of course, everything's coming down locally and we're working with Claude Code. And yeah, it's all week. It's been getting better and better. And but this is how we are like a fully agentic work team, like we're working remote, and we're as we sort of write our newsletter, we're reading all the news, but we're also using all the tools at the same time, which I think is a really profound way to like um, be able to speak with some sort of authority. It's like we're not just reading and then writing some stuff. It's like we're actually using. And so kind of coming back to where you just said is, you know, the open cloud world was, took storm a few weeks ago. We got a laptop over there running OpenClaw, and we haven't been able to spend much time with it. But then like by the time we're ready to look at our OpenClaw stuff, it's like Claude has kind of got there with Dispatch, which I was using yesterday, which I didn't have a really great result. I don't know if you did that, but you're right. Jensen is talking about OpenClaw strategy, and he's got NanoClaw, which is he's promoting NanoClaw to get on your computer, so he can also promote his models, the NVIDIA models, to be down there. But it's like it's really kind of I think it evaporates fast, even for like an NVIDIA.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can keep up effectively. It's an arms race, and everyone's speed is just the speed of AI, and that's not human speed. That's a fundamentally different cadence. And I think the only question is, at what point do the humans sort of look at it and go, that's good enough. It's doing the job that I needed to do. I mean, if you think about our workflow, I mean, I effectively used to write for a living. I was, as you know, I was a Wall Street analyst. I spent time in the equity research department at Credit Suisse First Boston for many years, and wrote about radio companies, TV, outdoor advertising, cell towers, took them public, did all that kind of stuff. But mainly I was talking to people, collecting information, becoming an expert and authority on the subject, and then writing on it. And the number of sources that you could take in was just sort of limited by, your own bandwidth. How fast can you read? How fast can you dial your phone and talk to people? And I look at what we're doing now, and I think we're taking in 400 or 500 articles a day from a wide variety of sources, taking those, scoring those, prioritizing the ones that are the most salient for who we think our audience is. Taking AI newsletters, taking in X posts. I guess, can we still call them tweets?
Yeah,
I call them tweets.
I like them tweets. It makes more sense than
I
X
do.
posts.
I do too. So we're taking in tweets that we find individually. We're taking in tweets that are from the sort of the best and brightest in the space, and coalescing all of that into a variety of themes that you can then sort of pick and choose from and write on. And the crazy thing is that in the course of this week, I think we started out this week with a newsletter that had an image that was being done manually by you at night, and we ended up with a web post, a newsletter with an image, and
And a style.
and a style, and a LinkedIn post, an X tweet to prepared. And I think where we ended the week was that same stuff plus the image, very much automated, plus the ability to do slideshows in Instagram, in TikTok, and a variety of other automations that got thrown in there. And it's, quite frankly, only a matter of time before all of that gets automated. So it's, one idea, two ideas, couple of linked ideas that really bring together what's important in AI every day. What's going on in the market? What does it mean to you as a someone interested, someone running a company, someone investing money, someone deploying capital, whether it's time, human capital, or actual cash, and we'll have automated that into 14 different outputs, which is incredible, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's publishing at the next level, right? It's
yeah, it's true omni-media publishing, but being done with two guys as
right.
opposed to a enormous team of people. I mean, there's a great article in the Sunday or I guess this is Saturday Wall Street Journal today talking about a writer from Fortune who in this new world has now published like more stories this year than like the whole rest of the company because he's using AI. And it's not AI slop. I've read his stuff. It's perfectly good stuff. It's just taking away all the time consuming parts and leaving pure ideation, which is, I think, the great thing. We wrote about this a little bit, and Alfred Lin had written a piece from Sequoia, and he said, the biggest thing going forward is going to be judgment because everything else is going to be effectively commoditized. And that's, I think, really what anyone who reads our stuff hopefully finds is that because of our, you know, I don't
Yes.
have much hair and you have more gray. Because of our age and our experience, we actually have pretty good judgment, pretty good pattern recognition. And we're going to see things that a model is just never going to say.
Well,
Not yet.
yeah, actually, the model will see things that we can't see,
Correct.
and we're gonna be able to go like, that's interesting, here's why," or it's gonna be like, the model's not gonna see what we see, and we're gonna force it to, like, push its latent spaces together by us, and that's very interesting. And I think everything you just said, like, yeah, the inspiration for me is, like, what Alfred was saying in his post is judgment is deeply human. Excuse me. And I think that, that's where people are gonna tune in, and that's what I'm writing a piece about this on, that's gonna go in our long form area of, but it's the taste of that you develop as a human over time is unique, and then and certainly if you wanna write about it or share about it, like, AI can help you produce faster, but if you have no taste, AI is not gonna help you at all, you know what I mean? And I think that where I where where I like what we're doing here right now with the way we've adjusted the newsletter is, like, we're not repeating the news, we're actually giving you news, and we're giving our analysis, like, our take, and so it's like, if you're and this podcast is hopefully doing this, it's like, "Hey, here's what we're doing, here's what we like, here's what we don't like, here's what we think is, a fool's errand or just crap, or here's what's actually really amazing based on our years of experience, based on like running companies and funding companies and writing technology and analyzing it." And I think that's special and humans at that specialness. Um, and
Yeah.
it's, AI is going to help drag that out. It's also going to produce some crap, but that like most people can like suppress the crap.
Well, I think it depends on how much time they're willing to devote to it. I mean, I think we could produce 10 times as much if we didn't keep a human in the loop somewhere.
Yeah.
I had this, debate with my wife, and I was sort of explaining what we were doing. And she's like, oh, so, AI is writing. I was like, no, actually, no, AI helps structure writing, but I'm writing. It's my ideas, it's my words. I would say that, 90+% of what I write into Claude about a subject gets ultimately structured into, the arguments of the article that
Yep.
appears. Um, and I just sort of look at it and say, there's scaffolding, and then there's the actual, meat of the arguments and the turn of the phrases that are uniquely myself or yourself, and I think that hopefully differentiates things as opposed to just, here's what happened and here's the summary. And I think we also look. One of the things I try hard to do, and I know you do too, is try to tie concepts together because nothing that happens in the market is happens in a vacuum. Everything
Mhm.
that happens because something else happened, because there's another reason. We wrote obviously about lots about OpenAI this week, and
Yeah.
killing Sora, killing the Disney deal, adding advertising, offering PE firms 17% guaranteed returns. Um, and
That's crazy, right? That's crazy.
well,
I mean, it's not even like PE firms aren't getting 17% returns anyways, generally, right? Like they're looking at
the good ones are. I mean, yeah. I mean, look,
yeah,
those guys are they're clearly shooting for 20 to 30%, just like VC firms do, right? And let's face it, if you compound at 17 or 20% for a decade, you are a monstrous hero, right? I mean,
yeah.
you're world class. So I wouldn't knock the 17%. I just think that it is it's a tactic, right? Eh, OpenAI is losing at the corporate level to Anthropic.
They've lost. I think they've lost. I think they have to earn it back. I mean, they've been a consumer company mostly, I think, since ChatGPT got released in whatever 2021
22,
or
November
22.
22, I think it
Yeah, so
was.
I was in the playground earlier, and it was a dev tool, if anything, and then it became, the experiment of ChatGPT took everyone by surprise, including OpenAI. So, so just not to cut you off, I want you to go back, but like OpenAI is Sam's very used to like the YC thing. Like he has, hundreds of companies doing stuff, some hit, some don't. He's got OpenAI, is running OpenAI. It's like, hey, I got Sora, I got all these things, like what's hitting, what's not. ChatGPT hit, it changed the world, right? Now he's I think what you're getting to is like now they have to actually have a strategic intention, meaning and therefore more product discipline because they have another company that's just eating their lunch in the developer community and the corporate community. Um,
Well, it's the community that will pay. That's where their lunch is being eaten. They're. I mean, what was the numbers? Sora was costing them $15 million a day, and it took in $2 million total in its lifetime. I mean, so it's
not a good trade.
no, look, I mean, I'm, as you know, I'm not a technologist, but the cost of running a video model is a hell of a lot different than the cost of running a chat model.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
it's
It's
yeah, it's a very backward economic situation for them, and you just can't have that if what you really need to build to, where you think you're going is hundreds of billions of dollars in capital. Ultimately, there needs to be a the I guess the music always stops. Whenever you're financing stuff, the music always stops, and if you don't have a business when the music stops, you're in trouble. And I think
um,
Anthropic, glommed
look,
onto that and figured it out.
well, I mean, I actually think that when I look at the two companies, I see real product discipline in Anthropic. Just everything I see, their website, their just everything I see them do is there's this really interesting product discipline. And I was really early on with Claude Code when it was a CLI. Like no one was going to download a CLI, but I live in a CLI, so I was like, yeah, it was phenomenal. And I think that the other thing that really and this is a nuance, but I don't think people understood that like the CLI version of Claude Code meant that you at a Unix prompt level could you could pipe data to a Claude program and have it run and exit and you get a result. Like so you could kind of immediately make Claude Code work in a way that chat in a web browser just couldn't. And I think that unlocked a lot of things. And then they had Claude SDK that you could actually embed the whole all of Claude CLI into an application and then give the end user basically Claude Code. And that's kind of what Cowork is. It's
Right.
Claude Code wrapped in a web browser that unlocks you. And I think that that's kind of an interesting segue to talk about Claude Code and maybe how you're using it, but also like how you see it. Just like what has it done to you as just a person that's just met it? You know what I mean? Because you've been
Yeah.
using it for like a couple months now.
Yeah, I mean, basically since they dropped the app for the Mac, where where you just I just launch that every day, or launch it 4 times a day, as I said. Look, I'm old enough where my first computer language was BASIC, my second computer language was Pascal, and my third computer language is now Claude Code, Cowork, right? So there's a lot skipped
Yep.
in between those, 40, 50 years or something like that, probably 40 something years. Um, so yeah, it was probably the early 80s was the last time I actually tried to actually program something. And with Cowork, I've very quickly realized that anything that I can imagine, it can largely do.
Yeah.
And if it can't, it can then describe the problem. So, for a project that we're working on for our friend Phil, I was putting together an automated advertising system for a product that he's selling, a DTC product. And I ran into the problem of it would research, it would come up with creative briefs. I hooked it into, Gemini to get Nano Banana 2 to get good, images,
Yep.
but it was producing lousy images. And I had to, I really went through and I queried it, and I now, I sort of understand the problem. And it said, well, here's the problem, and we're kind of stuck with this. Um, and that's maybe the limitation of my questioning, or maybe it's just a limitation of Claude because it's not an expert at images. It just, they just don't do that. Like you said, it has product discipline, so it
Well,
doesn't really, it doesn't do detailed imagery the way,
that's why you're using Nano Banana to do that.
right. But it was interesting. So I went to Gemini and I said, I have this problem. Here's my workflow, uh, and it gave me incredibly explicit directions to 3D map the shoe that we're selling. And it's called Namu.
Yep.
And if anyone's listening, go to namurecovery.com and go buy yourself some recovery slides. But by doing so, I was able to then go back into Cowork and immediately, upload a variety of instructions and say, okay, here are the files. Here's how to input that into Nano Banana. Now we can keep the geometry of the shoe. Now we can color the shoe. Now we can do all the things that, someone who is a true expert at this type of work does. And I am absolutely not an expert on this, but I sort of became one in a matter of 2 or 3 days, on and off. And to me, that's we started talking about AI, and I think that uh, not many people have the perspective, right? I think there are people who use it like Google,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they don't get a lot out of it, but they get answers, but they don't get a lot out of it. And I think there are people who are programmers, have been lifelong developers, who are now using it and see it as maybe it's evolutionary to some, but to someone like myself, it's revolutionary, absolutely revolutionary. I'm would consider myself a lifelong learner. You know, I'm old enough that a lot of people would say, "Well, why aren't you just retired?" Like what are you doing? I'm like, writing a
Dude,
newsletter. What are you
dude,
doing?
it's so
Trying to build a business. You should be playing golf. Which I do, right? And I play my other sports, but uh, it's so intellectually fascinating to me to be able to look at a project and a problem and then to dig in and to have the resources to have something explained to you for not much money in access cost. It's like a what a library card used to cost. It was, $20 a month or something like that. You could have
yeah.
all this, the world at your fingertips. And it's almost like there's no excuse for ignorance anymore. It's only your decision not to understand something that stops you from understanding it, I think.
Yeah, let me respond to some of that. So we've known each other a long time, and I actually, I'm stoked that you've adopted what you've adopted. Like, I've seen you literally go from, like, "What is all this stuff?" And it's like, you weren't even skeptical. You were just like, you just weren't using it, to, like, now, I'm like, "Wow, I'm just really I'm impressed and excited." You know what I mean? And that's what I am with, like, everyone that I talk to about AI. I mean, co-AI really got started a while years ago because I was really frankly worried about this sort of moment that folks that I care about, friends and family and coworkers, wouldn't adopt AI because it just would be intimidating to them, and then therefore they wouldn't unlock stuff, which I've seen you completely unlock, and you're going to the next level. And I think as an executive, I think executives that are not going this direction, that are not making time in their executive life to kind of say, I need to actually train with AI. Um, as much as I would train in anything, I'm gonna fall behind as an executive. I don't care if you're a 30-year-old executive or a 60-year-old executive. You can't be an executive in the world effectively, I think, for your team and for yourself and your company if you're not doing this.
Yeah. And let me interrupt you there for one
Yeah.
second, because here's the thing, right? We've both been around long enough. We've seen enough companies. We've seen enough disruption. Historically, you would see a disruption on the horizon, and you would say, "Okay, yeah, that could come." But then you'd look and you'd say, "But yeah, I got 5 years left." And so that's the next guy's problem. I'm not terribly worried about that. I'll ride out my time, because the pace of disruption was not as fast as it is today. And so I saw it. I mean, look, I was on the board and was an early investor in Pandora, the music company.
Yep.
And I saw it with the radio industry. I was looking to help them raise money. And I went back to all my radio guys, and literally the CEOs of the top 10 radio companies in America, and talked to them about it. And they all laughed at it. And they said, it's too risky. It's, it'll never change the way music is listened to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, you look now and those companies are, if they're not dead, they're dying, and
Yeah.
you don't want to be the CEO of a radio company anymore. They're no longer relevant at all in the world. And what happened to Pandora? It got absorbed by SiriusXM because something else came along, be it Apple Music or be it Spotify, that ate their lunch
I
because they
know.
did it slightly better. Um, and you think about the pace of change today with AI as your, you know, co-pilot, so to speak, or as your agent, or as your hundreds of agents swarming around a problem, and you realize that you see a problem on the horizon. It may be too late already. It may just be like you're looking at a tsunami, and you can run, but it's going to catch you.
Yeah,
Eh,
it's exactly. I mean, I think there's 2 big things that I think companies went through in my lifetime was, like, the internet, and then it was, like, mobile, you know what I mean? And
yep.
maybe a subversion is, like, social media, you know what I mean? And a lot of companies could sleep on the internet, you know what I mean? They did, right? And some, a lot of them got wiped out, a lot of them had to change. Um I think AI is distinctly different. I think it's like like for me, it's like I really want to see companies understand that their team needs to understand how to use AI at expert levels and in
Yep.
their discipline. Not necessarily saying they need to become coders, but they need to understand something that you kinda said earlier. You said, like, almost anything you can conceive, you can actually get the AI to kinda get you there. Maybe it's a dirty prototype, but prototypes can actually be extended by your team. You can see what's possible. And I think a company that doesn't have an entire executive team not using AI means that they're not open to that sort of level of expression, curiosity, and conclusions. And so, I started working with, co-AI as just a way to get people going. And I would wonder if anyone would want to look at your resume and say, "Oh, hey, or early days, people would put on their resumes like, I know how to use Microsoft Word or
Yeah.
Excel." I don't know if you remember that at the very
Sure.
bottom.
Yeah.
You'd list off a
PowerPoint.
couple, you know what I mean? And I was always thinking in like 2021 or 2022, like, would you put like, open AI or something like that? And now I really think like if the top question of any sort of person that's getting a job anywhere would be like, tell me your AI stack. That'd be my first question. And if it's like blank stare, it's like my advice to them would be like, hey, come back to me when you can answer that question. Now if someone answers the question, it's like, well, I have a mixture of things I use. I use, Claude Code for this. I use Cowork for that. I have it linked up with this. I use this MC. Like if they kind of give me a stack that's working, I'm like, yeah, you're on the team. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I would
Yeah.
also re-interview all my employees. It's like, what's your stack? How do you use it? Like, I want to know as an
Yeah.
executive, because that tells me that there's some unlocking happening. And because if you're not doing that as a company, or you're an executive and you're not doing that, you're the boss of the company, the other bosses of other companies are doing that, and they're going to get a far different executive composition, able to handle their business a lot differently. I just want to pause there and let you respond.
Lots of things to unpack there. First thought is, if you are the boss of a company today, the question is, how did you get there? And you got there by mastering a system of delegation and politics and kind of climbing your way up the hierarchy. Unless you're a founder of let's say a technical company, but the guy who runs Coca-Cola probably didn't innovate his way to the top. Probably was a marketer, and so you're fundamentally looking at people whose skill sets are not necessarily the ones that are necessary to run the next level of companies. Um, and that is scary to them. And it is antithetical to their whole career to all of a sudden go down to their staff and say, just go build stuff. Just go crazy. I'm empowering you to do whatever you can to make our company AI first. And we're just going to see who comes out of it as the best group of people, within the company, and who's going to bury their head in the sand. That's scary to, people who do top-down management. This
Mhm.
level reports to the VP, reports to this, and then there's budgets and you can't touch my data and you can't, et cetera, et cetera. It's incredibly frightening, and it is, I'm guessing, going to be almost impossible for companies. But the companies that do it, I think, are going to be the big winners. I
Yeah.
agree completely on your resume thing. It's just show me not only show me your skills, show me your gems, show me your
Yeah.
GPTs, show whatever it is that you've developed. Show me what you've developed. Explain to me, it's the old explain, something that you're really proud of, a really hard problem that you solved that they're proud of, sort of question. Explain to me how you used AI to solve a problem and what that unlocked. I think is going to be probably kind of the question of the future. I think the other thing is that
Yeah, don't you
show,
think? Like, I
yeah,
mean,
I think
like straight, you're hiring someone, they're like, yeah, I don't really use AI that much. Wouldn't you just be like, yeah, like we
next.
really like you, but like, dude, like, just exactly right next.
Actually, I wouldn't say that I really like you, because if you're not doing it now, what it says to me is that you are not intellectually curious. And if you're not intellectually curious, next. Like because those are the only people that are going to survive because we're going from a world of top-down bureaucracy to a really flat organization where everybody in that organization needs to demonstrate real agency in order to make the whole thing move forward. Agency within a strategic system set out by the founder, the CEO, whoever it is in charge. But ultimately, you know, that person probably doesn't have all the answers as to how to get there. And so you need to have a whole lot of people with a whole lot of agency and give them rope, and they're going to hang themselves. But that's okay
Yeah. I mean,
because let them hang themselves, cut them down, and say, all right, go again. That's good. You tried. I think there's another question there
yeah.
also, which is when don't you use AI and why? Right. So, and I'll give you an example. Uh, I still do a fair bit of financial modeling. I do not use Claude for financial modeling. Now, I'm really good at financial modeling from years of having done it. But to me, if you let Claude do your spreadsheet or you let ChatGPT do your spreadsheet or whoever, um, what you're saying is that you don't necessarily know how to do it yourself. And so what you get is, you know, the spreadsheet version of AI slop. You need to understand, I think, the the way those are built up. You need to understand the way a P&L works, the way a cash flow statement interacts with a balance sheet, interacts with a P&L statement. And if you don't understand those things fundamentally, then having AI do it for you may get you a finished work product, but it won't actually allow you to learn it and to
Yeah.
really understand it and get involved in the business. It's just, it's the same thing as writing, right? If I just tell, I mean, look, we could write 50 versions of the same newsletter every day and just have Claude write them for us and never look at them and just publish them, and they'd all be okay, and we wouldn't understand a bit of what's going on.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, so what you're kind of saying, which is interesting, is
It's human judgment again.
yeah, it's human judgment. I mean, I get like, by the way, like with software, it's like sometimes like having AI like write everything and never look at it. It's a little bit of a blind faith. It's like kind of like using like like a remote function. Like you don't know how that function works. You're just
Right.
kind of like, okay, f of x, I get it's okay, it returns. Um, I think every discipline could say like, well, I think you need to get your hands in it so you understand it. When I look at financial models, as tiring as it is going over in my past life with the CFO or the controller or the VP of finance, it's like you really need to spend that time just grinding at it to understand the inputs and the outputs sufficiently so that when you're making decisions with the group, you're like, you understand that input really well. Like you're understanding your CapEx or your OpEx and you understand how that affects like mental model of it. But at some point, as an executive, which I've been one, your controller and your VP of finance are operating it sort of remotely and you're expecting that. And I do believe that AI could probably do a very good job of it, but I don't I hear you, but I wonder if that will I'm curious in the course of 26 and 27 how you modify your thinking, in that department.
Yeah, I look, I I modified it a little bit already, right? I mean,
Mhm.
in building this system for Phil, the advertising system, I start to integrate it with the inventory system, which is not much of a system. It's basically a spreadsheet,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
that's okay.
But it's
Spreadsheets are the
yeah,
ruler of all things, man.
right. So it's just, hey, how many women's size 7 in blue do we have? And if the answer is we have 2, I don't wanna be advertising on Meta that week for women's
Yeah,
shoes,
yeah,
right?
you don't wanna backboard a
I
bunch
got
of stuff.
yeah, I got an excess of size 12, so I'm gonna put out a lot of, like, football guy shoes, ads that week because that just makes sense. Uh, you have to I mean, you
Yeah, you have
should
to understand.
understand that naturally, but, uh yeah, I agree. I mean, look, I did dump in all of my, credit card bills for the last 3 years. I just took the CSVs down from, Amex and Citibank
What's
and
the
all,
expectation you're gonna get from it?
uh, I just wanna know where I spent money. Just, like,
Yeah, and so what's interesting is, like, we're switching topics here, but we're I like being random access, but, like, that used to be a SaaS business. Like, that would be Mint or someone's like, "Hey, like, we'll look at your spending." It's like that's an interesting point. It's like, your business is gone because I can download my CSVs and I can load them into something, and I can, like, literally just beat them up with Claude Code and get what is important to me, not some SaaS product. I can, like, that's like your SaaS for your personal finance. That's I mean, that's gonna just eviscerate businesses, right? I mean, like,
yeah.
I'll go further. Um, Credit Karma is really good at sort of like, like these guys that are like taking data and like kind of giving you these hypotheticals, or like, I forgot the other one that like reads all the T's and C's of credit card companies and make a recommendation on my credit card. I mean, that shit's gonna go away, right? Because I could just download this T's and C's and just tell the AI, "Hey, like, look, this is what's important." Now, I might be lazy and not wanna do all that work, like step and fetch, get all the T's and C's and do all that work and spend my tokens on that, but I could, and all those, like, little pieces of business that are out there on the web are just gonna go away, I just think that's fascinating and irksome because, you wrote about a PE getting 17 points, extra or guaranteed because of using OpenAI, but it's like, I actually think a lot of PE firms are sitting on a bunch of SaaS businesses they bought into that are just gonna get eviscerated no matter what, whether they
Well,
use AI or not.
yeah,
It's like,
you saw both Thoma Bravo and Vista Equity, so the 2 largest software PE companies in the world, both released their decks that they gave to their LPs this week. And, I think, and I talked to another guy who'll just go nameless, who's a friend of mine who, runs another big PE shop, and asked him about same sort of stuff. And I think all of these guys, they obviously they're going to talk their book because they have to, right?
right.
It's not possible for them not to. I mean, can you imagine if you had entrusted billions of dollars to someone and the guy said, "We are screwed,"
Yeah.
like it's not possible. But
They're
these,
saying that in their offices together, though.
well, I think that if you talked to them a year ago, they were less worried. If you talk to them today, they are absolutely worried, and they've started to take aggressive steps. The guy who's runs a company, he's multinational companies, multinational fund. They've now at headquarters now have sort of a centralized AI group that goes through every single company that they have to make sure that they are, kind of doing the right thing. But the question is their fundamental business process built on something that can be replicated by AI
You.
cheaply by me? Yeah.
Just you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, look, in the past, because I've done this in the past, that project would have taken me hours. I would have had to go into Amex, download, 2 credit cards worth, 3 years worth of CSVs. So, 72 CSVs there. I have another couple credit cards, so by the time I was done, I probably had 144 CSVs. I then had to put them in, take
Yeah,
out the
it's hell.
extraneous columns,
Yeah.
sort them, blah, 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 blah. It's a pain in the ass. Now I just download the CSVs into a file and say go and say, explain to me where I spent
Now,
my money.
here's
Um,
another here's another thing you and I talked on. I know we're digressing, but the web, they made that download for you as a human. But
correct.
what we really need is, like, get that. I don't want to do that. I have an AI. Just make those CSVs available to me via my AI as data, and I can give you my credentials, but I just want to grab those. Like, I don't want to go to your stupid website. It's
Correct.
garbage. Like,
Yes.
downloading CSVs from a credit card company is like you need a degree in yoga and kung fu. It's the worst experience known to man. Like, even Apple's credit card downloads, I gotta, like, friggin' it just sucks.
Yes.
It needs to be agent based. We talk about that. So I digress. Keep
No,
going.
no, but it's look, like I think it's good, right? It's another thing that we've spent time writing about, and I think that we will continue to spend time writing about. And look, I think it's one of the the main things. I'm on the board of a company, WM Technologies, otherwise known as Weed Maps, does cannabis marketing, cannabis data stuff. I used to have a business in that area, and I now run not run. I'm now the sort of the head of the tech committee there, and one of my main questions is going to be, how is our data ready for AI?
Of course.
What are we as we build, a large scale product database, how are we getting that ready not to be read by the web, by humans, but by machines and by agents? Because those are the winners in the future, are the guys who have figured that out. I think, look, one other thing, and I think we should say it because we've written about it, and I think we both believe it pretty strongly, is you can spend an awful lot of time talking about AI, doing, what Bernie Sanders is doing and saying, AI shouldn't exist because, we need to make mittens by hand. And let's make sure that no worker ever loses their jobs. And the truth of the matter is that automation will always come for human jobs. It's happened for a century. It's just happening faster now. The
Well,
real question,
the labor market, just, capital and labor markets are always just sort of like they
yeah,
need each other and they don't need each other. And the labor market right now is going to get augmented significantly by all this AI technology.
right.
It doesn't mean all humans go away, but if you're not good at your job and not made better by AI through your own efforts, you're not long for that company or career,
No,
period. And that's what
you've
I've
been,
been saying. You got to
yeah.
figure
Look,
this
you've
out.
been you've been handed an unbelievable tool, and you can look at it and say that tool scares me. And I'm going to be angry at it. Or you can look at it and say that tool can make me a 10x employee. And I think the key to, managing these businesses at this point is to give people lots of rope, see who, is the real uh, high agency people in your organization, give them the 10x, 20x, let them build agents, let them build all that stuff. Realign your recruitment process to bring in people who can do this stuff. Um, and go on the offensive. It's
Go
not
offense.
it's not
Go
really a
offense.
question of, it's not a question of like, how do I keep my margins at 60% because I'm going to cut people as I lose revenue because I'm not AI first. It is really, how do I grow my margins to 80% because if I had 100 people, I cut 50 of them because they weren't AI people. And then I added 25 more AI people, and I
Yeah.
gave those 75 20 agents each. And so now I have the effective workforce of 1,575, I
Yeah.
guess,
Y-
to
the-
do the math right. And now all of a sudden I'm pouring in more revenue, and maybe that revenue is on a per unit of what I'm selling less, but there's a lot more of it.
Yeah, and hopefully the customers are enjoying it. The products that you're making. I think when people ask me what should I do about my company, um, my feelings have changed. But what I really want to see executives do is not fire people because they can get AI to do something. Of course, that might end up happening because you just become really efficient, and efficiency does come from not having a lot of people in the middle where you have to get 9 people to make a single decision on something when you can make 3 people do it faster. I think that's what AI will probably eliminate jobs. But what I really want to see companies do is hire talented people that understand AI as good as they can, and help all of the people that your executives understand it. So it's almost like a coaching thing. It's like every week it's like, "Hey, Harry, you should try this, you should try that. It's on you to try it," and they just kind of get, because it's going to take some time, because look, if you're running a company, your team is already like hammered with shit to do up to their eyeballs, and to ask them to do AI on top of that, it's just like it's mind-boggling. But if you can kind of coach them into it, and this is offense, you coach them into how to run these new plays. Some are going to stick around, some are going to go away. The ones that stick around are going to become able to sort of become your 10x.
Yeah.
So it's really about double downing on your current team. But if you don't provide them like an executive AI sort of coach talents to development, you're not going to get there. And that's where I see everything go wrong, is they're just like, hey, we're buying AI for the company. You figure it out. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
it's not going to happen, man.
Yeah. It sounds. I used to run a sports data business, which was early. It would be really interesting to run that same thing with AI today.
Totally.
But what was fascinating about it was you'd go talk to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they would talk about how their fans. They had fans everywhere. They literally were probably like on away games. They have more fans in away stadiums than probably any other team in America. And you sort of dig into
Because no one wants
why.
to live in Pittsburgh.
No, it's because the Steelers were the identity, right? In the the terrible towel days and the 70s. And what happened is that steel mills closed, right?
Yeah.
So you had this diaspora of uh, of Yinzers, as the people from Pittsburgh call themselves, and they went all over the country, but they never lost that allegiance to their home team. But the truth of the matter was, if you were a steel worker, there was no retraining available for you in Pittsburgh, so you went west, usually west, south, and you found other jobs, and you sort of retrained yourself, and you figured it out. Uh, with AI, there's really no need for that mobility to have to go away to retrain. You can retrain. You can retrain at home,
Yeah.
wherever you are, and you can work from wherever you are, because every company that is around you will all of a sudden need those skills. It's not like there are things that are just literally going away. I guess maybe if you're in a town that has nothing but call centers, maybe you will go away.
Yeah.
But maybe those call centers will, again, turn into something else. Maybe they become farms for agentic development, and and then there's like an Upwork for agents, and that's where they are. And then all these people have retrained themselves to be great agent developers. Uh, I don't know. I'm just thinking about it. Or, maybe those buildings all just become condos, as we have a housing shortage. So, nice big building turn into a condo.
If you want to live in the Philippines.
I'm talking about like Iowa, or something like that.
Yeah.
So very, very true. But I also think that's, it's also an interesting thing in terms of, and this is probably getting into economics that we don't need to, but under this new world, there have been businesses that were small enough that nobody would attack them. So, it's a small business. It makes 50 grand a year. Somebody makes a living in Iowa, making 50 grand a year doing, web development or whatever it is. And now that same business is available to somebody in Vietnam or the Philippines, and they can make 5 grand a year, and they're living fantastic because of the cost of living there. And so it's the level of, I think, internationalization is going to be phenomenal with AI, because it just allows you to do work kind of anywhere.
But also, I think it also brings maybe things back to the US and to this time zone, right? Because like if you're outsourcing a lot of business process management, or you're outsourcing stuff to development, overseas, and it sucks because you're also doing this time zone shuffle. You're taking calls in the middle of the night if you're in the US. I actually think that there's an opportunity to say, hey, we're bringing it back to a time zone that we want to talk to the guy that's making this stuff during our time zone. We don't want to, what I mean? So I think there's an interesting flip that it's like, no, we can get production at a price point that's efficient for us, and we don't have to use overseas talent. So I think it kind of also could reverse. I don't know yet, but I'm excited to see that happen.
Yeah, I'd love to see it happen. I mean, the idea of bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. I don't.
Harder,
Well,
but bringing back software manufacturing is more possible.
Yeah, well, I think software manufacturing for sure. But I think hardware manufacturing too, just sort of I'll just call it, the manufacturing of physical goods. I mean, what's always been the issue with, everyone says, well, the Chinese will work cheaper, the Indians will work cheaper, the Vietnamese will make shoes cheaper. Well, the combination of robots and AI should actually allow us to
Yeah.
bring
See, I think
tons of manufacturing back on shore. There may be fewer manufacturing jobs to be had in that regard, but there may be many more products that spring up that can use that sort of manufacturing facility. So I think that'll be look, I'm no expert on it, but if there's sort of manufacturing know-how, which is fiendishly difficult. I sat on the board of a electric truck company for a while, and I learned firsthand just how ungodly difficult it is to actually build physical objects.
yeah, no, that's
Um,
it's at
it,
building moving atoms is really hard compared to
yes,
moving bits.
yeah. Good
Um,
good luck to Travis. Build moving his atoms,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. But I mean,
But
that's the hard thing. I mean, that's what I think that in that article that you wrote with about Bill Gurley and Travis and all that kind of stuff. It's like moving the hard stuff. I actually think making as things are getting easier to be made and the competition's going up as a result of AI, then you have to kind of go like, well, what's hard to do? I'm going to go do that. So you get pushed into like making physical coupled with software, which is harder to do, which means that you might actually start them in the US and actually get expertise building them in the US, which actually can kind of give us this boom in like local manufacturing. It may be that it's cost effective to overseas it, but right now, I think you're gonna see an explosion there, and I think where Bernie Sanders has got it, spiritually right, like, workers shouldn't lose their jobs, yeah, sure, but at the same time, it's like, like, forget, like, just anti-AI, it's like, how do you effectively move stuff that went overseas back here, and how do you make manufacturing of the new stuff happen here, and you have a set of policies that actually encourage it and reward it?
yeah, and yeah, I'm maybe I don't know where this puts me on the spectrum of politics or economics, but I would say that if there's one thing that I think we ought to have learned out of COVID is that when the shit hits the fan, countries will absolutely take care of themselves first, as they should. That is their government's duty. And I think we learned pretty quickly that if we need, masks, we don't make them here. If we need
Or medicine.
medicine, we don't make it here. I hear that Japan is low on oil. New Zealand has about 2 or 3 weeks of oil left because the Straits of Hormuz are closed, and and that stuff is necessary. You saw it in Germany where Merkel woke up one morning and said, like, the climate people are right. We're going to take down all of our nuclear plants, and now they're at the mercy
Yeah.
of Russian gas. I think it's probably and I guarantee you this is not what Bernie is thinking, but it is the logical outcome of what Bernie's saying, which is that ultimately the job of the government should be to protect its own people and and the next generation of people, and not just saddle them with lots of debts and screw them. Uh, and as a result, I think the combination of AI, manufacturing, robotics, all the things that we are actually great at and sort of have a lead at in the world is something that we should actually be deploying heavily here at home so that we ultimately have those protections for our own citizens and then, trade with the world. I mean, look, free trade has been a net positive for the world. Um, I think trade in general, open markets are a net positive for the world, but there's open markets and then there's a baseline of what you need. And I think that AI is actually going to allow us to bring that baseline back home if the politicians can get out of the way.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I'm a member of the logical party. I'm the only member of it right now, which means that I can blend 2 political ideas and theses together to, like,
No, no, no,
have
no,
the
you're
net
you're
benefit
wrong. You're
be
wrong on both sides.
yeah, exactly, so but, look, we're totally AI enthusiasts, so all we're gonna see it through that way. I do think robotics robotics and AI are and machine vision, are all sort of intertwined.
Yeah.
And I heard, and I haven't done any homework on this. First of all, I think China's eating our lunch with robotics, and I think we need to bring it back. I heard through a conversation at GTC that NVIDIA actually, or robotics companies are starting to add LLMs to the robotics, because robotics are largely machine vision. So it's like, if it needed to use machine vision to pick something up and do something like that. But now it's actually saying, hey, what are you seeing? And it's, instead of like it having to be like very deterministic with machine vision, it's now saying, what are you seeing? And like the LM says, I'm seeing this, like, and it's giving another instruction to the robotic to do something through an LLM inference session. And so I think this merging of AI, like the LLM inference and machine vision with robotics, you're going to get this amplification of what robotics can do. And I'm a ex-robot maker, like hobbyist, and so I'm would love to spend more time with like making robotics work with LLMs and kind of get this hybrid thing. And eventually I could talk about a project that I'm doing as a hobby. But I think that, yes, if we can that's all coming. And I think more and more companies need to be doing that. And we shouldn't, and I think that our supply chains are really, are efficient, not resilient. And resilience means that you have like, a gigantic portion of that making locally. And, we need that. And most companies should be thinking about this. But, before we sign off, because we're kind of here in about an hour here, Harry, I think that the listener should know that we're going to talk like this all the time. Like, we're routinely going to talk about things we're both interested in and that we write about, and it's going to drift. But I think the net is going to be how AI is affecting us, how AI is going to be affecting our families and our friends and the businesses that we sort of work for, work with. And if you're interested in sort of like this kind of conversation, then you're going to be happy to listen to us. And then some of you, the executives that are listening to us, we're going to want to bring on a third voice or a fourth voice to sort of rap with us. Like we're building this community. We're passionate about AI. We're actually not we're not columnists. That we're actually working on AI. Like, we do this all the time. And so we want to talk with other people that are making things with AI, running businesses that use AI, or businesses that are converting from their classic business and they've made a breakthrough. We want to hear about your case study and we want to talk about it. And then we'll drift all around. Like, we'll talk about economics and how you run businesses and Harry's past board positions, all that kind of stuff. So I'm excited to be doing this with you, of course, Harry. And
Yeah, I agree. I look at the world, and I just think that it will be fascinating to continue down this journey, and I think it'll be fascinating to bring on people who are highly accomplished in life, and really, from their point of view, understand what they're seeing in AI, how it's affecting their lives, how it's affecting their businesses, what decisions they're making, what difficulties they're having, what successes they're having. Because I think we can, it's not unlike my career perhaps, which is it's easy to be an analyst. It may not be easy, but it's relatively easy. You're sitting on the sidelines and you're kind of throwing peanuts, at people, or throwing rocks at them, telling them, they should have done this, they should have done that. And then you get in the arena and you realize, oh, actually, this is a lot harder, than it looks.
yeah, it's like you're getting punched in the face. Like, I didn't know you guys got punched in the face all day long. It's like, yeah, we got punched in the face all day long.
It's actually my job.
Yeah.
And I think once you do that, you gain a dramatically different perspective. You do that, and you get punched in the face. And in my case, like I said, I mentioned the cannabis data business. I got punched in the face, and I got knocked out, and they broke my jaw and my nose and took out my teeth.
They started kicking you when you're down,
and they kicked my ribs in. Yeah, I mean, and you have to go for surgery to fix it. it's that kind of beating that you take that really gives you a lot of perspective
Yeah,
in life.
so you're an operator. Like, you're not
Yeah.
just an analyst. Like, we're analyzing, but we're operators. And I think just we want other operators to join us. And I think also, Harry, we talked about this, but we haven't. It hasn't shown up in our writing as much. We're both really interested in the future generation and parents of the future generation. Like, what are you doing to help your kids? They're in high school. I got a high schooler. I got a college student. You know what I mean? It's like my college students just like, don't talk to me about AI, Dad. And my high schooler's like, I'm afraid to give her AI because I think she'll just totally like, wait a minute. But it's like, we really do need to address that as a society and as family members and our colleagues. Like, we want to know how we should be having that conversation. We have our own ideas. We're gonna be writing about it more, but we really do want to know,
Yeah.
like, that's some area that we want to have some conversations about.
Yeah, I know we talk about it a lot personally. I mean, yeah, as you said, yeah, I have 2 daughters as well. One of them's interior designer, who has 30 different GPTs going at any given time. She's
Let's
very,
get her on the pod. Let's get her on the
very AI
pod.
fluent. And my older daughter,
Oh, I
who,
know. Yeah.
who actually is sort of negative on AI, um, and she's a actual rocket scientist helping to build satellites at Lockheed Martin. And, you sort of ask her why, and she, she'd tell you that they're not precise enough for the work that she does, because a hallucination is going to cause a real problem in the vacuum of space, a million miles away from us. So, 2 really different perspectives.
By the way, we should send. We just had breakfast. I forgot your daughter's name. It just popped out of my mind.
Megan and Fiona.
Yeah. So,
Oh,
so we should send Megan the Claude Mars JPL post.
oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Maybe it might get a salty response, but
Probably.
but that's what we're gonna do on this podcast. I mean, I think send this around if you're hearing when you listen to it. Send it to some friends. This is the conversation we're gonna have, and we're inviting some folks to join and read our newsletter. Harry's chiefly writing them right now, which is and I'm really thrilled. I'll be writing some as well, but I think you're in such a good mode. I don't want to disrupt, but we're writing the newsletter. We're writing long form posts. And we're totally open to including new voices here. So we're not just closed off here. We're actually we want to increase the circle. So
if all we ever do is talk to each other, we failed.
Yeah, totally.
We really. I think we can do this a lot, and we do it all the time personally. But I think it's interesting. But ultimately, I think it's fantastic to bring in other voices, and we absolutely should do that.
Totally.
I have a variety of people that I would like to bring on, who I know, who I think would be good. And then I have a wide list of folks that I would love to talk to, because I just think they're interesting human beings.
Yeah.
And I think other people would find them interesting. So,
Yeah. So this podcast is about humans talking to humans about how we use compute technology to improve life. So why don't we leave it there and say goodbye? I'll talk to you. I'm gonna hit stop, but we're not gonna get off.
Okay.